Today, I'm powered by Duncan. Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie Chase. Today, let's do something different. I thought it'd be fun to look back on, well, to rank the factions that we've seen on AEW. Now, disclaimer, this is just a bit of fun. I think because we're in that period of AW, it's been around for long enough where we can actually, things have come and gone, people have come and gone, factions have come and gone, so we can go back, we can look over it and reminisce or see what we thought about it. Yeah, so I'm going to go through some of the factions that we have seen in the history of AEW and rank them in tiers. Now, I watch a lot of YouTube ranking videos about all different things, but never about wrestling. So I thought I would try one with a wrestling spin. Before we get in the video, let me remind you to follow me on Twitter at Stephanie M. Chase. That's also my name on Instagram and on TikTok. And if you want to help support this channel, you can go check out the links in the description box to my Patreon and my OnlyFans. And of course, don't forget to subscribe. If you're watching this and you're not subscribed, why? Why? Subscribe. I mean, if you don't like all my stuff, you can just like hide it from your feed or something. I mean, just be nice. But yeah, go give me a follow. Check out my other work. This channel drops around 3 videos a week, including reviews of AEW Dynamite every week and an interview with someone from the wonderful world of wrestling. So hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications to be the first to know when new videos come out. Now, I guess because I have my Duncan, this is going to be quite a casual video. When I started writing a list of all the factions, there have been so many factions, and AEW is really known for the amount of factions that it has. So these are the ones that I've decided that I want to talk about and put in a little ranking for you. Okay, so let's go through the tiers that we're going to sort these factions into. There are 4 tiers that I have come up with and made little names for. The lowest ranked tier I have called Bad Nightmare. I wonder why I would call it that. But yeah, lowest ranked tier is Bad Nightmare. These are the factions that just were not good. Straight up, this was not a good faction in AEW. Not memorable. If it is memorable, it's not for the right reasons. This was a bad nightmare. My next tier is Just 4 Guys. These are the factions that I think the members just seem like 4 guys who were thrown together. Why are you together? Why are you hanging out? Why are you deciding to go on this journey of being a pro wrestler in AEW together? You might as well have met in the queue to get in the building. Just 4 guys. Then the second tier is the Outer Circle. These are the factions that are good, but they're not good enough to be top tier, like best of all time in the history of AEW. And then the number 1 spot is Elite, of course, because I'm so original. Wow. Yeah, these are the factions that I think are the best in AEW. Now, this is not me saying that they are like greatest factions of all time. These are like DX, NWO, 4 Horsemen, whatever floats your faction boat. But in the short, but yet very full of faction history of AEW, this is like my elite tier. Now, at first I thought I should really do like a load of research for this, spend hours reminiscing on these factions, what they did and whatever. And then I was like, no, F it, because I've been watching AEW religiously since day one, since before Dynamite even existed. So if I can't remember or have great, if I can't have great memories or a great feel or a great feeling for this faction, just sitting talking about it now, like just seeing their names come up, then obviously it weren't that great. On to the factions. What factions are we gonna talk about first? I'm gonna start with the House of Black, who were a bit up in the air a while ago, but now are back on our television. The House of Black, Malachi Black, Brody King, Buddy Matthews, and Julia Hart. They are the gothy faction of AEW. If they were in Harry Potter, they would be the Slytherins. If you've been watching my stuff long enough, you will know that I am a member of the goth community, even if it doesn't always look like it, and I have been for a very long time. So anything gothy is close to my heart. Maybe that's why I give the House of Black maybe a higher ranking than they deserve. I'm gonna say the House of Black is outer circle. They are definitely not an elite tier faction in AEW. We haven't seen enough great slash memorable stuff from them. But they are definitely not just for guys, because Malachi, Brody, and Buddy, they do all give off the impression of like uniformity, and we know that these guys would be hanging out together. Now, obviously, Brody, like visually looking at them, Malachi and Brody are like so heavily tattooed, and Buddy's like the odd guy out, but I think that's fine. And then I did like the whole entrance of Julia Hart in the group, and I do think that she is establishing herself as the best member of the group currently. Like, she's definitely the best dressed member. So I do enjoy the House of Black, and I do think they're a good faction. So they are going to go in the outer circle. I'm going to go for a faction that no longer exists in AEW. That is Team Taz. Team Taz, led by Taz, who's like the manager, like trainer of the group, and that included Powerhouse Hobbs, Ricky Starks, originally Brian Cage, then he was ousted, and of course Taz's son Hook, who was originally like kind of a mysterious background character, and then came into his own, and we got introduced to him. I really enjoyed Team Taz. I enjoyed like the initial storyline of Brian Cage and Brian Cage's exit. I think that Ricky Starks is such a great personality, and Powerhouse Hobbs is too. And I think they both really, really benefited from being together early on. I really liked Team Taz. I have good memories of them, FTW belt, all that. For that reason, I'm putting them in the elite tier. Are they one of the greatest factions of all time? No. Are they one of the most memorable factions in the history of wrestling? No. But in the short history of AEW, I do think that they are one of the better factions, one of the top tier factions. Now, here's one where I might stir up some controversy, because I'm going to talk about the Blackpool Combat Club, who are next. It is not even easy for me to say. It's not even explicitly clear if this faction is even still together as we stand right now, filming this video in February 2023. The Blackpool Combat Club consists of whatever. William Regal, we know he's out the door. Jon Moxley, Wheeler Yuta, Bryan Danielson, and Claudio. This faction were formed, I was there when it happened actually, at Revolution, when Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson had a match, and then William Regal came out and was like, guys, you should freaking join me in a faction, I guess, or you should be together. And then you had like, I was also there with Wheeler Yuta's kind of proving himself moment against Jon Moxley, getting the faction. And then Claudio was brought in as part of the faction when Bryan Danielson was unable to wrestle at Forbidden Door. I think a lot of people are higher on this faction than I have ever been. And I think that's probably due to the level of talent involved. You have Jon Moxley, who is, you know, if you were to pick AEW Hall of Famers right now, Jon Moxley would already be in it. And then you have Bryan Danielson, one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. And then there's a lot of people that have a lot of love for William Regal too. I'm not a fan of the Blackpool Combat Club. There, I said it. There you go. That's my whole career over. I've said it. I'm not a fan of the Blackpool Combat Club. At all. I think my problem with this faction, I'm saying it now, this is going in the just for guys tier. My problem with this faction is I didn't like Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson, two great wrestlers and two great stars, being stuck together in this team. William Regal, of course, Blackpool. None of these other guys are from Blackpool or have any connection to it other than the fact that they like William Regal. So I also hated the name as well, and maybe also because I visited Blackpool once and I wouldn't again. Sorry. I thought like the name was silly, and I just found the whole thing pointless. Honestly, I thought William Regal took over it completely. They feuded with the Jericho Appreciation Society for a really long time. And there was some, and I think that feud as well, putting them in a faction to go feud with another faction, like that went on too long and maybe wasn't like the best use of everyone involved. William Regal, putting every other, like, I'm not going to talk about his wrestling career, his career in WWE, him in NXT, anything to do with that. But I was not a fan of his presence in AEW, and I will never ever get over that promo that he did towards Jericho about his toothbrush, about what he did to Jericho's toothbrush. I will never, like, I will die on the hill of that was one of the worst promos I have ever heard, worst and most unnecessary promos. And I think that just that promo alone soured me in the faction anymore, soured me on the faction more. I think that it's definitely run its course. Now, we have Danielson going after MJF for the title. Moxley's in a great position. He's in a feud with Hangman Page. I don't think that if its aim was to help like elevate like Wheeler Yuta, I'm not sure that it's fully done that. And then you have Claudio with all that Ring of Honor stuff mixed in. I don't know. Look, I'm just not a fan of the Blackpool Combat Club. There you go. And they to me are just 4 guys. And I'll just say now, just 4 guys doesn't mean that there has to be only 4 guys in the faction. It's just my term. Okay, let's just do it. The best friends: Orange Cassidy, Chuck Taylor, Trent Beretta, Chris Statlander, Danhausen. I do not love the best friends. I do not hate the best friends. I think maybe like might even be a strong enough word, but like I understand and accept their place in AEW. I'm glad they're there. I think they're a bit of a staple of AEW. I interviewed them once all together, and that was pretty fun. So you can go check out that video in my archives. But yeah, the best friends are fine, and it's good to have them there. And to me, like, they're not just 4 guys. I think they definitely have a real friendship connection that's well portrayed on screen. I think they've had some memorable matches, feuds as well. I'm thinking of the whole Miro, Kip Sabian arcade game match thing where Chris Statlander returned. That was awesome, and that had one of the best Dynamite endings ever. And then there was also the great parking lot brawl with Santana and Ortiz. So I like a lot of their stuff, actually, when I think about it more. So the best friends for me are in the outer circle. Okay, let's go into a faction that is still probably in its infancy. The Firm. So you have Stokely Hathaway as the manager, Ethan Page, Lee Moriarty, Big Bill, or W. Morrissey, if you don't want to sound too ridiculous. The Gunn Brothers, Austin and Colton, Matt Hardy, Isaiah Cassidy, and Mark Quinn. This, for me, I feel bad putting it in Bad Nightmare already because it is so new. So our introduction to the Firm was them working on behalf of MJF, and then some real life stuff happened, it seems, from what we've heard, where they were going to play a big role in MJF's feud with CM Punk that never materialized because of Brawl Out and all of that stuff. So I do feel like really bad for them there, but they are just like a collection of guys together for no reason. I mean, they are maybe like the best example of just 4 guys. So there's so many of them, but there's great talent there. Like Stokely is a great talent. Ethan Page is a great talent. Love the Guns. But yeah, I'm not feeling it at all. I'm going to have to put them in Bad Nightmare. Sorry. Let's move on to the Wingmen. They are very much a dark elevation faction. You have Peter Avalon, Caesar Bononi, J.D. Drake, Ryan Nemeth. They are not like prominent. They've never been prominent enough to be a Bad Nightmare. I'm just going to be kind and call them just for guys. They're not doing anything that's like actively, bringing anything down. They're just four guys. They're just there. They're a jobber faction if there ever was one. Okay, another defunct faction is the Pinnacle. The Pinnacle, MJF, Sean Spears, FTR, Dax Harwood, and Cash Wheeler, and Wardlow. I have a lot to say about the Pinnacle. Okay, the angle where the Pinnacle was formed is still one of my favorite AEW angles ever, if not my favorite. So if you remember, like MJF was infiltrating the inner circle, he was getting close to Chris Jericho, and they were basically setting it up for you to think that MJF was turning all the inner circle members against Jericho in order to take over the faction. And then they did the big reveal on a Dynamite where actually what this guy was doing was forming his own faction to take out the inner circle. The initial reveal of the Pinnacle, I would give that 10 out of 10. It's everything afterwards that I wasn't on board with. So the Pinnacle feuded with the Inner Circle. We got a blood and guts out of that. MJF had a big feud with Chris Jericho. But I think just as a faction, they gave me full just four guys. I do think that maybe what happened was there was this great idea of making this faction with MJF because he was specifically in a feud with Chris Jericho, a faction leader, and you could tell a great story there. But I think when it really came down to it, it was probably decided, even if it was never said out loud when the booking was being discussed or when the storylines were being written, that MJF is probably better as a solo guy. And I think very quickly they seemed less of a cohesive faction and more just like even like loosely aligned, other than MJF and Wardlow, of course. And they did some stuff, with Wardlow and Sean Spears being his accountability. Sean Spears is like had the most stop-start AEW career of anyone other than maybe like a Kip Sabian. So the Pinnacle, 10 out of 10 on the formation, but the follow-up for me just wasn't there to put them any higher than just four guys. I spoke about Pinnacle. Is it time to speak about the Inner Circle? Let's do it. The Inner Circle was Chris Jericho, Jake Hager, Santana and Ortiz, and Sammy Guevara. The Inner Circle were formed at the end of the first episode of Dynamite, which was very cool, and that was the debut of Jake Hager. I loved the Inner Circle. I will say it there. The Inner Circle might be my favorite faction ever. I'm not even lying. I think I just have like really good memories of them. And I think I was just very on board with the Inner Circle. My only Inner Circle negative is that I don't think that I think it did not elevate properly the individual members. Sammy Guevara, though I think a lot of that was down to him, I don't think like reached a good solo career height through being in the Inner Circle. And Santana and Ortiz definitely suffered. They never got a tag team title run, which is absolutely crazy when you think about it. But I loved the Inner Circle. I loved so many storylines that they were involved in. I even loved the slightly sillier things. I thought they were really entertaining. I thought it was cool to see Jericho lead a faction at that point in his career. I think that it made sense. Like I said in the Pinnacle thing, I loved that whole storyline and the formation of the Pinnacle. I think that they were in some really cool, memorable matches, such as the Blood and Guts, the Stadium Stampedes. I liked all that stuff. the Inner Circle, absolutely my favorite faction in the history of AEW, might even be my favorite faction like in the history of wrestling. And that's crazy because, sorry, I'm moving in my chair and it's going to be noisy. But yeah, like that's crazy because like I lived through the NWO and DX that people talk about a lot when they talk about factions, evolution. But I really loved the Inner Circle, and I loved their cool, rock and roll like 80s biker vibe, even if I didn't think it suited everyone in the faction. I thought they were a great cohesive unit, and I think it was like properly shown why all these guys would be together. They made a lot of memorable moments. Um, did I like the ending of the Inner Circle? No, I think that could have been um, more impactful. I think for a faction that had been around since the beginning of Dynamite, I think I was looking for something more impactful. Like I wanted to cry when the Inner Circle had broke up, and I didn't cry at the end, and I really wanted to be made to cry. However, I love the Inner Circle, and they're an elite faction for me. That's it. They are the elite faction for me in AEW. A faction that has been around a long time in AEW and has had ups and downs are the Dark Order. So all the people that have been in the Dark Order, hopefully I remember everyone. Evil Uno, John Silver, Alex Reynolds, Alan Angels, Colt Cabana, Ten, Anna Jay, and of course there was the late Mr. Brody Lee, who was brought in as their leader. And we do see Brody's son, Brody Jr., -1 in the faction too. I think that when people look back on the early years of AEW, these years that we are living through, that the Dark Order will be very memorable. No, they haven't been involved in the biggest stuff. They're definitely not at the top of the AEW packing order or the AEW storylines, but they have had this great crossover like relationship with Hangman. You do have to, I think there were definitely bigger plans for the Dark Order when Brody was brought in, but unfortunately, tragically, like those plans did not get to be followed through on. But I think that the Dark Order are in, well, at least maybe up until a couple of months ago, they seem even more reduced now, but they were in like quite a good solid place for a long time. I feel like, I don't know, like their longevity makes me think that it's not fair to put them in Outer Circle, but Elite feels too strong. I think if anything, they're somewhere between Outer Circle and Elite. But because they are so just like a part of the fabric of AEW from the early days, and they're definitely like they started off shaky and they found a place for themselves, and they did a lot of great stuff, on being the Elite as well. Like that made me like them even more. So I'm going to put the Dark Order in the Elite tier. Okay, let's talk about the factory. So, members throughout the ages, QT Marshall, Aaron Solo, Nick Comoroto, Anthony Agogo, Blake Lee, Brick Aldridge. This is, you see, I don't want to put this in the lowest possible tier because I think that we're at the point now with the factory where they're not trying to be anything other than jobbers. And I think the way QT is used is pretty good. So I'm not going to do that. I would say like just 4 guys, they seem pretty random. It's really just now seems like QT wanting to have, some people around him. Anthony Agogo was in the factory. He might even still be in the factory. I don't know like what's up with him and AEW. He definitely had breakout star potential, but there was a lot of factors and stuff that made that not happen, or it hasn't happened yet. But anyway, factory, just 4 guys. I had to talk about it at some point, I guess, if it was my idea to make this video. Next, I'm going to talk about anything with any faction with the words family office in it. We started off with the Hardy family office, which was Matt Hardy, Private Party, Butcher, Blade, and the Bunny. Then it turned into the Andrade family office with Andrade and Jose, the assistant, God knows where we are at now in the family office AEW universe. Out of all the factions I'm going to talk about, this is the one that I like the least. If you could scrub factions from the history of AEW, it would be anything with the words family office in it. I did not enjoy the Matt Hardy stuff at all. I did not enjoy the character he was doing. I don't think Private Party have ever recovered. They came into this company so strong. They never recovered from getting teamed with Matt Hardy. And I think that Matt Hardy just he just drags things down at this point. And then you had it going over to Andrade. Andrade's had his problems, so like that's not there. I think we've got like Roosh involved now. It's just anything with family office is not good. And please stop making storylines about contracts. We don't care about your contracts. We don't care about contracts. Okay? This is wrestling. Fighting over a contract. Fighting over like oh I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I wrecked my hair. I hate it so much. So please, no more family office, the absolutely lowest tier. They are bad nightmare. Speaking about bad nightmares. Maybe this was like the whole basis of this video, just the memory of this faction, the Nightmare Collective. Brandy Rhodes, Mel, Awesome Kong, Dr. Luther. This was like a turning point for AEW. I think people thought this whole thing was so bad that they had to do a pivot, and then I think Tony took a lot more creative control. This was not good at all. I think Brandy was like really desperately trying to show another side of herself. She had spent all that time in WWE as a ring announcer, and she spent a lot of time, and she spent a lot of time being known as Cody's wife and working as his valet manager on the indies. I think she wanted to have her moment of showing like versatility, that she could do something different. It did not work out. The Nightmare Collective were a bad nightmare. That's it. Like, it did not work out at all. Awesome Kong didn't end up hanging around, neither did Mel. Dr. Luther was just a very weird fit for this Nightmare Collective. I think we can all collectively agree was a bad nightmare. I guess maybe now I should talk about the Nightmare family. There are a lot of people here in the different incarnations. Dustin Rhodes, Lee Johnson, Fuego de Sol, Red Velvet, Kylan King, Baron Black, Arn Anderson, Brandy Rhodes, DDP, I've said Arn Anderson, QT Marshall, Billy Gunn, Austin Gunn, Colton Gunn, Nick Solo, and Nick Comoroto. At one point, they broke off into the factory. It's all very confusing. There's a lot of names there, and of course, like the leader was Cody Rhodes, but Cody would be like, "We're not a faction." This was messy, and I don't even know what my memory of this. Here's my honest opinion on Cody having his Nightmare family. I think that there was a time early on in AEW where Cody just seemed to want what other people had, even if it didn't make sense. So I think he saw like Jericho having the inner circle and was like, I need a faction. When you look back on Cody's AEW career, it did feel like there was a lot of inconsistency, a lot of like stop-start stuff, and a lot of stuff that he didn't really think through. I don't think that the Nightmare family ever felt like what it was meant to. I think Cody just saw him as someone who should be surrounded by an entourage, so he got an entourage. Are they bad enough to be bad Nightmare? For me, maybe yes, but I think I'm probably gonna that's being too harsh. So I'm just gonna say they're just 4 guys, except it's like just 40 guys in this case. I guess it's time to talk about the Elite. Who am I counting in the Elite? I guess I will say the Young Bucks, of course, Nick and Matt Jackson, Kenny Omega, Hangman Page, Don Callis, Brandon Cutler. Like, that's of course me mixing all the different incarnations together. Look, it's all Elite wrestling. We needed the Elite. I guess at some point Cody, right at the beginning, was in the Elite, But for all Elite wrestling, we do need the Elite as a faction. it's been up and down in the booking. It's been up and down in the storylines. I think the best stuff they ever did was the stuff early on with Hangman and Kenny, and the Bucks and all that. But there's no way we're going to be looking back on AEW and the history of AEW and not thinking highly of the Elite. So they're going to go in the tier that is named after them. They are Elite. My last faction I'm going to talk about are the Jericho Appreciation Society. Now, I did say earlier that the Inner Circle are my favorite faction ever. So the Jericho Appreciation Society is like the sequel to the Inner Circle. So they set this faction up very well, where it's Chris Jericho, Jake Hager, Daniel Garcia, Angelo Parker, and Matt Menard. They are the initial people. They set it up very well, where you didn't think that Garcia wanted to be in it, and then he embraced it. It turned into this whole "we are sports entertainment and we hate wrestling" thing, kind of like some shade throwing at WWE. And then it added Sammy Guevara, who brought with him Ty Mello and Anna Jay. The initial incarnation of the Jericho Appreciation Society, the first lineup of the band, the original lineup, the Axel / Duff, Steven Adler, Izzy Stradlin lineup, I really enjoyed. I think that it made sense. I liked what they did with Daniel Garcia. I love 2.0. I think they are great wrestling characters. Jake Hager, of course, has to do something. And then really, I think the best use of him is just being Jericho's heavy. So that was all good for me. And I thought that it was distinguished enough from the Inner Circle. They were doing like a different thing. It was all about sports entertainment, razzle dazzle, stuff like that. And I really did enjoy the JAS at the beginning. That is not to say that I don't still enjoy them, but I think that the addition of Sammy, Ty, and Anna to me has not elevated the faction. Sammy, I don't know the tea on why Sammy was put into the JAS, but there was a time when Sammy was getting the crowd behind him in the Inner Circle during the whole MJF storyline. And he had such a triumphant moment at Stadium Stampede, the one coming back from the pandemic. He actually got the pin. And then when the Inner Circle started breaking up, he had a really good exit of being like, look, no hard feelings to anyone. I'm going to let you guys fight over it. And I'm going to go and go off for myself. Then he got dragged into Cody stuff. And then other stuff happened that I think really turned the fans against him. And he was definitely not getting over as a babyface. They decided to put his real life relationship with Ty Mello on screen because we all knew about it. There was a lot of that stuff going on. And I think his kind of failure to get over as a babyface, and then also failure to like properly get over as a heel character. To me, Sammy has never gotten over as a heel character. People just don't like Sammy. And that sounds harsh, but like that is how I observe it. It's less that we're booing this heel like we boo MJF. It's different to that. So that saw him, then he ended up back in a faction with Chris Jericho, like he was going back to square one. And I don't think that it helped the faction or elevated the faction. I do. And maybe also a lot of this is coming from how much, and I don't want to talk about it again, but to briefly summarize, I was so in to the Daniel Garcia, "You Are a Wrestler" storyline. I was so into that. And to me, that went nowhere. Now, it seems like they're picking it up again. Like, Sammy is Garcia's accountability buddy. I feel like something's going to happen there that might lead to Garcia finally breaking free. But to me, like, there was a moment when this was such a great hot storyline. And what they decided to do was make Garcia just decide that he likes Jericho after all and do it in Canada, in Toronto, where Jericho is received as a babyface. So it didn't even get this great, like, you made a heel decision reaction. Instead, it got like, yeah, that's what we would do reaction. So I thought that was like very strange. And then, like, when the at Full Gear, we saw Claudio, Bryan Danielson, Jericho, and Sammy in a four-way match for the title. And then that felt like a spot that should have been Garcia's. So Sammy's entry into the faction threw something off. I think it threw off the dynamic and like the power structure, everything that made me really like it in the first place. So I still really like the JAS. I still think like they're really great and they're really entertaining. But I am like an original. I'm more of an original lineup fan. I would be the fan if I was at like a JAS fan convention. That would be, in the T-shirt of just the original members being like, yeah, well, I liked it when it was only 5 guys. I'm only joking, but you know what I mean. So JAS, for me, I'm going to put them in the outer circle. They are not just 4 guys, because I totally get why they're all together, why they've all come to be. But they're not elite because there is something, maybe not that there's something missing, but there's been something added that I think has like thrown it off a little bit. So they are going to go in the outer circle tier. Okay, that's all I have for you. I don't know how many factions I went through. Obviously, I didn't cover every faction in the history of AEW. I left out some. I just kind of picked ones that I wanted to talk about the most. So let me know let me know like what your favorite and least favorite AEW factions are. Let me know in the comments what you think of how I rank them. If you disagree, of course, please do it respectfully. But yeah, that was just my opinion, my thoughts, memories, musings, and ramblings on the factions of AEW. Thank you for watching this video, especially if you've made it to the end. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. God, who needs their nails done? Not me. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications to be the first to know when I drop some new content. If you want me to rank other things, give me some ideas of other things I can rank, because I'm down to rank absolutely anything to do with wrestling. No. Anyway, give me a follow on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Stephanie M. Chase. I will see you next time. Bye!